All right, in this video, we're going to talk about the square of a binomial pattern. That's what you're going to see when you're dealing with a binomial, two terms being squared. The two situations you're going to find yourself in are a plus b squared or a minus b squared. Now, we all know mathematicians, good mathematicians, understand and start to recognize patterns, and then they dive into why those patterns are what they are in math. So when we see a plus b squared, there's a special thing that happens, and we can just follow the pattern rule, and that would be taking the a value, which in this case up here, I got a problem for you, which would be an addition problem, and over here I have a problem that's a subtraction problem. By the end of this video, you should understand why these patterns work, as well as being able to do them the long way if you needed to. So a is just going to get squared. That's going to be our front term. We're going to end up with three terms, a trinomial here at the end. So a squared, you take the front term and square it. You take the back term or the second term, and that's going to go over here at the end, and that's also going to be squared. And then in the middle here, we're just going to have to double whatever a times b would be. So you take these two values, multiply them together, and then double it. And you'll figure out why we need to double that in this pattern by the end of the video. Now let's take a look over here at a minus b, which is very similar to a plus b. The only difference is we're subtracting. We're getting a difference, not a sum. And so what we do here is same idea. A squared is going to be the front term. Our back term is going to be b squared, and it's going to be positive still. So no changes. A squared, b squared, a squared, b squared. But in the middle here, the only difference is that middle term ends up being negative a times b doubled. Okay, so now that you see the pattern, we can just use that pattern to go through multiplying binomials together very quickly. So I can take 5x squared. That would be my first term for 5x plus 3 squared. I could just say, what's 5x if I were to multiply it by itself? Well, 5 times 5 is 25. X times x is x squared. So we're just going to end up getting 5x squared would give me 25x squared. 3 squared, remember that's going to be my b. A is the first one. We've already squared that. I'm going to leave space in the middle here. That's just for helping you understand the easy parts. The middle part's the tricky part to understand. But b is a 3 in this case. So we're just going to square that. That would be plus 9 because 3 times 3 is 9. Now in the middle, we need to take a times b times 2. So we're taking a times b, the product of these two values, and we're doubling it. So what's 5x times 3? That would be 15x, but we have to double that. So what's 15 doubled? That would be 30 with an x attached. So this is our final trinomial. When multiplying 5x plus 3 together, you're going to end up getting this. Now let me help you understand why the pattern is what it is. If I take 5x plus 3 and I say square it, well, what does squaring something mean? That takes 5x plus 3 and we want to multiply it by itself. So let's see what happens when we do this. FOIL method, if you use boxes, whatever method you use to multiply two binomials together, 5x times 5x is going to give you 25x squared. So if you think about it, we're just taking this front value and squaring it. We're just multiplying it by itself. Then we got to do our outside terms. That's 5x times 3. Well, that's going to give you 15x. And then you're going to have to do the 3 and the 5x again. This 5x times this 3 times this 5x, two separate terms, but look at how many of the same result you get, 1 and 2. That's why we're doubling it. We're just taking a times b, remember, a times b, and we have to double it because that's going to happen when we do our outside terms, and it's going to also occur when we get our inside terms products. So now, last and final step, the only thing we haven't multiplied is 3 times 3, and that's what gives you the 9. And if you're multiplying 3 times itself, it's no different than taking that value of b and squaring it. So final result, 25x squared plus 30x plus 9 would be what you get here. You could just figure it out using the quick rule and get right to it. And if you want to just write it out the long way, expanding this binomial into two binomials and FOIL it out, you can always do that. Because look what we get here. 15x and 15x makes that 30x that we had already gotten. The 9 comes down. 25x squared comes down. And voila, same exact result. So now let's look at what we're subtracting. Let's follow the rule. Let's just take whatever's right there and square it. 6x squared. Well, what's 6 times 6? 36. What's x times x? That's going to give you the x squared. Then we're going to take the b. It's going to end up being a positive. And the reason it's going to end up being a positive is because this is now a negative. But when you multiply it by itself, you're going to get a positive. Negative times negative makes a positive. So negative 2 times negative 2, that's going to give you a positive 4 at the end. Remember, I like to do my ends, my front term and my back term. And then the middle term is just going to be a times b, but doubled. And don't you forget, when we're subtracting, that middle term will end up being negative. So what is 6x times 2? That's going to give you 12x, but we need to double that, so we're going to get negative 24x in the middle. So this would be the quick way to just go straight from square of a binomial. There's a pattern that follows every single time. This will be the case every time with a minus b squared. This will be the case every single time with a plus b squared. But if you don't like memorizing patterns like that, you can always just rely on doing it the long way. 6x minus 2 squared means 6x minus 2 times itself. So you just write it down 2 times and then FOIL it out. 6x times 6x, 36x squared. 6x times negative 2, negative 12x. Negative 2 times 6x, another negative 12x. Remember, that's why we multiply it by 2, because you're going to get 2 terms that match. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. Combine your like terms in the middle. Final answer of 36x squared minus 24x plus 4. And we get the exact same trinomial as we originally did by using the pattern. Hopefully this pattern makes sense. You understand why it happens and why it works out the way it does. You can go quickly, if you can memorize this, this is something you can, whenever you see a squared binomial, you can go right into the pattern. If you can't remember this pattern, that's okay. You can always rely on just working it out like you would any other 2 binomials being multiplied together. Hopefully this makes sense. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.